Well, that's unfortunate for Adrian. I know he has already been paired against Rug Delver once today, I believe. But yeah, the Rug Delver's real tough because your opponent can present you with Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf, which are both huge threats compared to your tiny creatures.
Yeah, and one of those creatures is a Goblin Guide, which is on the table as we do join this match in progress. Adrian on your left with the Goblin Guide and 2 Volcanic Islands. Neil on your right does have a Delver Secrets and a Tropical Island, and here is another Goblin Guide for Adrian. So the beatdowns are certainly starting here. And let's make it 3 Goblin Guides here.
That's pretty serious.
As if this is the first time you've ever seen Adrian Sullivan play Magic before.
The
cards go upside down.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that Neil is on 12 after this attack. It's just a hunch.
It's just a hunch, yeah.
It looks like he revealed a Brainstorm to the Goblin Guide, which, it's actually, reasonable card to reveal in the matchup in general, but 3 Goblin Guides not where you want to be. Goblin Guide is actually really weak in the Rug Delver matchup. Adrian has lamented that he wants to side them out, but, you have so many cards that are bad. But here, I think they're going to serve him pretty well because Tarmogoyf can't block 3 Goblin Guides. That's not a power. He is not Avatar of Hope, literally.
Well, give it time. We haven't seen the Modern Masters version yet.
That's true. They might update him.
Yeah. It claims to be the same, as we do see a Ponder here from Neil, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Starts with the Ponder. We know he has a Brainstorm. Looking at his hand, I saw a few copies of it, actually. So it's kind of interesting he would start with the Ponder.
Yeah, with the ability to put lands back to the top of your deck, so the Goblin Guide actually just lets you draw them and make it so that Goblin Guide doesn't have much of a drawback. I'm a little bit surprised to not see a Brainstorm and do see a Ponder there, but
if he's land light, then maybe that's his thinking.
Sure.
Because he needs to find a land in the top few cards anyway. But the Ponder will give you an extra look. However, Brainstorm actually lets you stack it much more certainly.
Yep. And
if you find a fetch land, you're getting a lot of value because you don't really need all of these Brainstorms when you're facing down 3 Goblin Guides. You probably can even throw one back. Don't get crazy, you know what I mean? But just because you have 3 Brainstorms does not necessarily mean that casting all 3 of them will lead to you winning the game.
All right, so that Ponder's going to resolve. You see a bunch of Brainstorms over there.
He has a fetch land already, so that makes the Ponder an even more curious.
He's going to go with Wasteland here.
I don't think this is where we want to be. One of the keys in this matchup is actually to hold Wasteland for generally your own lands to avoid getting Price of Progress.
I've done it with Goblins many a time.
Price of Progress is actually the single most effective weapon in the Blue-Red Delver against Rug Delver. Burn is in fact so effective in the matchup that Andrew Schneider, whom you may remember as a 2-time Blue-Red Delver Legacy Open champion, recently finished well at the Invitational. I believe he top 16 playing Blue-Red Delver. And not only does he have access to Price of Progress, he boards Lava Spikes for the matchup.
Yeah.
Lava Spikes.
Which, when I saw that doing coverage, it blew my mind. But as you said, he is very adept with that deck, so certainly had a plan in mind.
Yeah, it is one of the ways to win the matchup. You just basically shift to being an actual full-on bolt deck with access to Snapcaster Mage, Price of Progress, and Brainstorm to fix things up. It would appear that our hero on the right here neglected to draw off a Ponder. It's been since rectified.
Delver Secrets to draw here for Adrian. And he's going to start with Goblin Guides.
Yep. He's going to see what's up before he makes his play, which is wise. It looked like a land, a fetch land, and another fetch land.
3 lands.
Yeah. A Tropical Island, 2 fetches.
Yep.
All right, well, Neil just got a free Ancestral Call. He's got to win now, right?
That's typically how it works, right? You draw 3 cards.
Draw 3 free cards and kill the opponent? No?
So now here are 2 Delver of Secrets here from Adrian, so the aggressive draw, to say the least.
Yeah, I think Neil, kind of has put himself on the back foot here, wasting in this matchup. But we already discussed how Wasteland, is typically reserved for your own lands due to the awkwardness of Price of Progress. One of the strengths of Blue-Red Delver is actually that it is a deck that functions very well against Wasteland. It has access to 4 to 6 basics, depending on the configuration they choose to use. This particular opponent has gone with 5, the happy medium.
Adrian with 3 islands and 2 mountains. So we're going to see a sacrifice here of a fetch land. Going to search out a volcanic island. I'm taking a look at the deck list here for Neil. Spells that he can get himself out of trouble with, I don't think they exist in the main deck. There's Lightning Bolt, there's a Forked Bolt. Forked Bolt could take out both those Delver Secrets, but he's still going to have a huge issue there with the Goblin Guides in play. You kind of look in the sideboard for the Pyroclasm type effect. Typically it's Rough Tumble, and there aren't even any of those here, so.
To be fair, the sideboarded matches are going to be, different animals when Adrian likely has to shift onto that that burnier plan.
Yeah.
But for right now, Neil is certainly just stuck. Adrian drew a really creature-heavy draw. Neil adopted a bit of a controlling stance with the Wastelands and just didn't pan out.
So it looks like Neil does have to do some discarding, as he did Ancestral Recall. He's got plenty of lands to discard here. Tarmogoyf, they'll figure out the size of that. Put the die on the screen for you to let you know that it is a 2/3.
Big man on campus.
Yep. Adrian will check for Delver.
He can currently alpha attack his opponent for lethal, right? No, I guess he's one shy.
He's one short.
Yeah, one shy, but it's a pretty good attack anyway.
Yeah, and he comes to the same conclusion that you do, because it will get that Insect Operation off the board.
Correct. Neil cannot afford to make a quote profitable unquote block.
Yeah.
By putting a 3/2 on a 1/1, he has to trade. And even assuming Neil had some way out of this, which obviously Adrian has to play as though that were possible, Chain Lightning will do the trick.
Yeah, it sure will.
Adrian obviously has a lot of live draws in the deck at that point, and that's all it took.
So Adrian Sullivan is going to be up a game here with Blue Red Delver versus Neil Milligan playing Rug Delver. Take a look at Neil's sideboard. As I said, no rough tumbles here. You'll find a Surgical Extraction, a Red Elemental Blast, 2 Pyroblast, 1 Mind Harness, 2 Flusterstorm, an Ancient Grudge, a Crozen Grip, 2 Sulfuric Vortex, and 4 Submerge. As a Blue Red Delver player yourself, any of these cards scare you from the Rug deck?
Not so much, to be honest. The scariest card is Tarmogoyf. I just don't want him to draw that one.
Okay.
Mind Harness can take a few creatures. The problem is most of those creatures are pretty bad. Grim Lavamancer is like the only attractive one. We already discussed Goblin Guide. It's pretty mediocre. The Pyroblast and Red Blast are, real, but if that's the fight that they're gonna, take on me, my red cards actually get a lot better. Cards like Grim Lavamancer are much more powerful when my opponent's cutting cards that interact with me in favor of things like Red Blast, which, they catch my cantrips, which is a big deal. But it's really not that high impact. It's just turning the game into a drawn-out battle where one of us has Price of Progress, the other one has Tarmogoyfs, and we're just going to see who comes out on top.
Okay. Taking a look at Adrian. I know you have that in front of you, Blue Red Master.
Adrian has an interesting sideboard. He does not running the Lava Spikes, as many have. He has an interesting couple of cards. Zer's Weirding, very strange, not going to come in this matchup.
Zer's Weirding?
Zer's Weirding,
all right.
Yeah. He has the 4th Price of Progress. That's going to be in here for sure. I'm actually just double checking to make sure he has 3 main. Yep, he does. So he's bringing in the 4th Price of Progress. He has a lot of Red Blasts and Flusterstorms, way more than I would personally run. I like running 2 of those cards, but he has 2 Red Blasts, 2 Pyroblasts, and a Flusterstorm to top things off.
Doesn't want to lose Sneak and Show, man.
Yeah, I don't think those are very good in this matchup, though. I'm okay with bringing in 1 because I usually don't mind seeing 1. Just counter like 1 key Brainstorm when they try to, rig a Goblin Guide or something. And it can always be flashback later to kill a Delver. Not that bad with Snapcaster Mage. But the big card for the matchup is certainly 2 Threads of Disloyalty.
Ooh.
That is an unconventional sideboard card. It can be very vulnerable, especially in the Rug Delver matchup, because your opponent has access to Daze. If they don't board it out, then resolving a Threads through a Daze is actually pretty tough because you have to get to 4 mana, which is 1 more mana than you really need, generally speaking.
Sure.
And when you're playing Blue Red Delver, you want to be holding those excess lands to throw them away with Brainstorm and try and find more burn spells.
Threads was a card that, picked up in Old Extended many, many moons ago. It feels like 6 years ago now.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, making us feel old. But it was a card that was, boarded in Blue decks, Next Level Blue by Patrick Chapin, for example, to deal with Tarmogoyf, almost strictly.
Yep, it's got a bit of a storied history. Tarmogoyf, obviously, big card it deals with. Dealt with Jushi Apprentice for a while in Standard. Threads of Disloyalty is actually responsible for my 2nd PTQ win on a Wild Mikado. That's what I took.
You took that bad boy?
I took that bad boy.
Was it a 3/3 for you?
It was a 2/2. I had a Hallowed Fountain, like a boss.
Look at you. Look at you. You and your little planes.
Woo-oo. But yeah, Threads is a great card, and I'm a little surprised to see it. Like I said, it can be tricky in the matchup, but in a lot of spots, it is fair to say that your opponent will be boarding out Daze. And against Rug, which does not have access to something like Abrupt Decay, it can really be a game changer. Plus, any card that's not expected by the opponent is usually pretty powerful in the Legacy Open metagame.
Yep. And I think Threads of Disloyalty is going to fit in that camp of unexpected cards that could lead to a blowout here.
One of the other interesting choices Adrian has is Smelt over Smash to Smithereens.
I saw Andrew Snyder with this as well as the Invitational.
It's funny because when I first saw Smelt, I went to the DC Open and I was immediately, Jerry just bashed me for deciding I should maybe run Smelt over Smash Smithereens, but I like that 1 mana so much. Eventually I decided he was in fact correct, and Smash Smithereens is better. So I'm actually in favor of Smash Smithereens over Smelt, but as the playability of Spell Snare perhaps increases, especially in Stoneblade decks, it can be worthwhile to just guarantee you don't get got.
Yeah. Again, we did see Snyder with Smelt in his deck, and it having 1 mana in a deck like Blue-Red Delver, you know, where it is a mana-intensive deck, but also kind of mana-light, doesn't have a ton of lands in it, that 1 mana can make all the difference.
It's also a heavy thing with Snapcaster Mage.
Yep.
Because again, the difference between 3 and 4 lands is really costly in a deck with Brainstorm.
So we'll see both players lay out their 7 cards here. Neil will be on the play here with the Rug Delver deck against Adrian playing Blue-Red Delver.
You know, the more I think about it, actually, in this matchup, Adrian could be planning to go to 4 lands. You obviously have to lean on Price of Progress, and Snapcaster Mage is one of the ways to get duplicate copies of it. So it's possible his plan is to actually stress days or just make it, you know, not work out.
It looks like Neil's happy, and I think both players are going to keep their 7 here. No immediate send back, so we're underway. No 1-drop here for Neil. It's non-basic. So Adrian has a Delver Secrets here. You see a Fork Bolt in Neil's hand right now, just at the ready.
Right, yeah. Delver is not one of the better threats in the matchup, as it's very easy for the Rug Delver player to remove it or match it, especially post-board when they may have brought in things like Red Blast.
He's going to daze this.
It's an interesting use of daze on Neil's end. I mean, it usually only counters 1 spell, but obviously. But we have kind of discussed, you know, you really don't want to be dazing to put yourself behind here. He draws a Delver, which is fortunate. If he had to, you know, play a land and pass again, that would have been not great.
Yeah, putting himself behind the 8 ball. As Adrian is going to play a Scalding Tarn, he is going to sacrifice this. Taking a look for Stifles in Neil's deck list, even though he is tapped out, he does have 4 of those, so proper to do that now if Adrian does or does not plan to use the mana.
Yep. It's important to note that Adrian did in fact lead with Volcanic Island as opposed to fetching a basic, as that's typically your strategy in the matchup. You want to just start on basics early to avoid getting Wasteland stifled out, as you know, if they drop a Tarmogoyf while you don't have permanence, that's one of the fastest ways to die.
Yeah.
So Adrian either likely drew the fetch land, or he has several lands and was looking to bait Neil into turn 2 Wastelanding, which is a very common play.
So here's a Chain Lightning to take care of the Delver Secrets. Let's see if Adrian has a follow-up play here. And he does not.
No.
So Ponder is the draw here for Neil.
Brainstorm, Fetchland, Wasteland, Forkbolt are his other cards. He's going to Ponder. Adrian appeared to consider the Ponder, or is asking some questions now, so perhaps hoping to represent a Red Blast, or maybe he actually has one. Spell Pierce, another possibility as well.
I think if you're Neil here, excuse me, you're probably just looking for, as you said, the biggest problem card isn't Tarmogoyf, but just any creature, honestly, just to kind of get the ball rolling, start putting Adrian underneath some pressure.
Right. The issue is that 8 of your creatures are way better than 4 of them.
Yes.
Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose are both huge and tough to kill in the matchup, whereas Delver's very, very easy. It's at best a Lightning Rod. You also have to be very careful with your Tarmogoyf, as it can be killed in a couple of tricky ways. The trickiest is usually a burn spell from the graveyard in conjunction with Snapcaster Mage to shrink the Tarmogoyf a little smaller than you might think he was going to be. Not a concern in this case, as Neil has access to a sorcery and an instant in his own graveyard.
So now you're going to see a Wasteland here. Adrian looks like he's going to float a mana.
Yep.
I'm just going to pass the turn back.
Just good play. Always float that mana. Adrian going to fetch. It looks like it may have been the latter case. Adrian with a hand that has enough lands to play Magic, not minding his opponent Wastelanding. Again, deprives Neil of access to Wasteland to counter Price of Progress later on.
It may have been baiting.
I find myself baiting a lot for Wasteland in this matchup when I play it online.
I mean, neither deck has a lot of lands here.
Exactly.
So if they are going to spend their turn Wastelanding, you know, hopefully they just don't have very many lands afterward, and Adrian is just going to fetch right away and pass the turn back.
Generally, a turn in which they Wasteland you is also a turn in which they're not going to Tarmogoyf you. It's rare that those two happen at the same time.
So here is Delver Secrets.
Yep. Looks like I see a Threads and some more lands in Adrian's hand.
There's an island, and he does just pass the turn back.
He has another fetch land, so I think, again, you know, he's got 2 Threads.
2 Threads.
Wow.
Lightning Bolt as well.
And I think that's a Snapcaster Mage alongside the 2 Threads.
Pretty good hand.
Yeah, pretty reasonable.
So Neil reveals Spell Pierce to the Delver Secrets. So that's going to flip into an Insectile Aberration. 3/2 flyer in the house.
That's a tough reveal for Adrian. Obviously, his hand is very vulnerable to Spell Pierce. He's likely considering going ahead and bolting that Insectile Aberration before Neil can draw it.
Yep.
I would want to do that too because this disincentivizes Neil from keeping the Spell Pierce. He can shuffle it away with the fetch land, and now that he no longer even has a threat in play, he's actually pretty likely to want to do that.
The Spell Pierce's value has been diminished greatly now.
Right.
Just because it is known about, and how much is Neil going to represent this now that Adrian doesn't know about it?
I would rather I would want to take a draw step to try and find a Tarmogoyf if I were Neil there, like just shuffle and look. He appears to have decided not to main phase his Brainstorm here as well. Again, like I think you want to do that. You can hit a Nimble Mongoose and play it very easily. Adrian has hit that 4 mana we discussed about. That's the mark that makes his threads protected from daze. It gives him the ability to Snapcaster Price of Progress. Now that he knows there's a Spell Pierce, he'll also have to concern himself with playing around that.
See a Brainstorm here from Neil. Force of Will among the cards that he has seen here. He puts 2 cards back, but still without a Tarmogoyf or no Mongoose, which, as you said, are the key threats in this matchup. And while he can sculpt a little bit here with these Brainstorms, not really doing anything, giving Adrian a lot of time for himself to get up a hand full of burn and Snapcaster Mages to be able to finish Neil off if the game does go long to get to that point.
It is important to note here, though, that the life totals are 18 to 19. Adrian has entered into like an attrition game. He's obviously hoping to lean on those threads of disloyalties to break the symmetry of attrition. But as Neil has not presented a threat, he actually can't do that. So it's kind of backfired on him a little bit.
Yeah,
he's in fact giving Neil a lot of time. If the threat Neil finds is Nimble Mongoose as opposed to Tarmogoyf, Adrian's going to be in a lot of trouble because he's already spent a lot of gas just defending himself rather than creating a burn-based race, which is what you usually do in the matchup.
He is basically crossing his fingers and hoping that Neil finally does find a Tarmogoyf. That's his plan here. So he can take advantage of it, and he's not ever going to be able to kill it.
And to the credit of Adrian's plan, it probably will be very easy for him to win if he can threads a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
Like, Neil will not be prepared for it. He will have very few options. Right now, Force of Will is his only real defense given the known quantity of Spell Pierce. It looks like there's perhaps some confusion over when the Brainstorm was cast.
Yeah. So, yep, we're good to go.
Untap and draw. Neil hits a Wasteland. He has 2 in his hand. He can play them, but they're not doing anything.
All right. So he's going to waste one of Adrian's sources. Yeah. Adrian going to float some mana.
I'd probably just Brainstormed again here. I think I'd rather fetch than Wasteland that Volcanic. Brainstorm probably throwing back a Wasteland.
Yeah. How good are your Wastelands becoming right now other than just actually being lands? I think Adrian has proven pretty well that he does have lands here. Also his ability to search out basics. As you see another Volcanic Island here. I think that's all 3 for him.
That's his last one, yep.
Yep.
Nimble Mongoose. Daddy's home.
Yep, this is what you talked about.
Yep, this is the spot. Now, if Neil finds himself just leaning on this Mongoose to win, he'll actually probably be able to march there in 6 reasonably short turns. Yep. Adrian's deck does not have reasonable ways to interact with Nimble Mongoose. He has to race it. That is the only option.
Yep. So that's going to resolve. Adrian going to draw a card. Spell Pierce to draw.
No good. He can now fight his opponent's Spell Pierce or Force, depending on how things work out, if Neil actually does cast a Tarmogoyf. But otherwise, it looks like he's going to have to spend 2 turns trying to threads it, which is a fair bit of incidental damage. It's going to clock up to 3 from the Mongoose and whatever the Tarmogoyf hits him for as well.
See Adrian take a look at Neil's graveyard there, just to kind of get an idea of what's already gone. Make sure that Mongoose is still plenty big with the threshold. What his options are moving forward, as Nimble Mongoose has really put a huge cramp in his plans. I certainly think he had a strategy, and it seemed to be a good one, of course, which is punish Neil for drawing Tarmogoyf. But now that plan is up in smoke.
Right.
Number 6, we are now ready for you.
In part because Neil was patient, he didn't rush to find a threat. Rug generally should be assuming the role of the control deck in the matchup. Adrian has sort of tried to supplant that role with threads, because it takes your traditional trump and just reverses it, makes it your greatest weakness. So if I'm Adrian now, one of my impulses is actually going to be to try and end this game without showing that threads.
Yes.
Once we get to the stage where Tarmogoyf is no longer that relevant, I really don't want my opponent knowing those could happen to me in game 3, assuming we go there.
So an attack for 3 yet again is going to put Sullivan down to 12. There's a volcanic island. That's a turn back. Adrian going to sacrifice this misty rainforest. Stifle is going to try to stop that. Adrian going to maybe baiting here. This might be what he wants to happen. He's going to spell pierce here.
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to tap Neil out here.
Looks like he wants a counter war to happen here. It feels like
he knows about the spell pierce that Neil has, so that seems to be the primary motivation to tap Neil out, is to try and resolve a card through spell pierce.
So here's your days.
Ah, nope. He's actually going to try and win the counter war, as it were.
Yeah. So what is he up to?
And it seems like he really just wants his land. Maybe he's actually run out now. I mean, he is on 4.
Lisa Jensen is off the silent stage.
All right.
Gets his island. A beautiful Urza Saga island.
Huh.
Adrian's asking, can I go ahead and crack this one too? I wouldn't crack this one if I'm him. It's pretty valuable to keep it around for Brainstorm. Like I said, those threads are really not doing anything. If we wind up needing to trade one or even both of them in, the fetch land will be invaluable.
Yep. Snapcaster man.
Ah, he needs it to cast. So it looks like he's going to enter the race now.
Turn a lightning bolt, and that's going to go upstairs.
Yep.
So Milligan going to move down to 16, and Adrian's going to try to put on some shoes here, get some damage going.
I feel like he was probably waiting to cast that Snapcaster Mage until he could dead the Spell Pierce.
Yep.
But, it's... Now he's going to have to find Price of Progress, that's his out, really, in order to reverse the race against Nimble Mongoose.
So Milligan 14, Sullivan at 10. Milligan's still the aggressor. In for 3 we go. Going to put Sullivan down to 7.
So fetch land for Neil. And if I'm Neil, I'm pretty happy about 4th bolting that Snapcaster Mage and putting Adrian to 6. That's 2 Nimble Mongooses away.
Call that a 2-turn clock in the business.
Look,
that's what it looks like.
He's equally excited about that proposition.
1 and 1. So Snapcaster is taken care of, as is Adrian's life total, put him down at 6. 2-turn clock there for the Mongoose. Let's see if Adrian has cobbled together anything now.
I think I see 1 Price of Progress in his hand. Oh. That's a pretty good spell.
You pretty fond of that spell?
I mean, it's all right.
You like that one? Little Mongoose comes across here, putting Sullivan down to 3.
He knows that if Neil has a lightning bolt, he's dead. And Neil does not.
So here's Price Progress.
He's going for it, and Neil's draw for the turn was in fact Spell Snare. Which is a pretty sick one, as that will be the best counterspell for Price here.
You see a Spell Snare, a Spell Pierce, a Force of Will, and a Brainstorm.
Yep. So it seems like this game is pretty much locked up for Neil. Adrian needs to resolve multiple spells to even have a chance, and this was one of them.
So here's Red Elemental Blast.
Red Blast is going to get pierced, I imagine. And that reserves Force with Brainstorm for the pitch if necessary.
Yep. Spell Pierce on that. Counter here.
Adrian's like, yep, you got me.
Counter there.
I knew that was going to happen.
Adrian on tap.
Probably, I assume still threads in his hand.
Has both Threads of Disloyalty in his hand. Nothing to take with them. Nimble Mongoose, why you gotta have Hexproof?
So rude. I mean, no. Nimble Mongoose is a fair Magic card. He's Shroud.
Oh, Shroud, sorry.
Yeah. He's not interested in these Invisible Stalker shenanigans. He plays good, honest Magic.
Yeah, I get confused easily.
Good, clean fun.
Yeah. So there's a Brainstorm.
All right, well, let's see what we can do.
2 Delver Secrets.
And another Price, and a land. Well, that's not going to do it. We've got Delver to block, so I guess we've got some hope of getting a redraw, but because we don't have a fetch land, we know what our redraw is going to be, which is Threads of Disloyalty. Oh, we did. Oh, our land is a fetch land. Never mind.
Is that a fetch land?
Shuffle. Yeah, I think that's a Delta. It's 1 Delta.
Okay.
So he does throw back the Threads, plays the Delta, plays the Delver, and he has earned himself a draw step.
Force of Will says
Force of Will says
you
no,
don't.
and you did. Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on to game number 3.
Force. I mean, it's fine. What if Adrian's last card was a Goblin Guide? You just look a little silly.
Attack, block.
Yeah, but that was
on.
going to work before.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think Adrian, probably a little disappointed with the sideboard plan there. It'll be interesting to see if he makes some adjustments. It looks like he's going to.
The sideboard plan seems like it's okay. It's just,
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
that situation where if Neil ever draws a Tarmogoyf, which is what he wants to draw, which is what Adrian wants to draw, as you said, it makes his greatest ally his biggest weakness. So he needs to be able to draw one of those, and unfortunately for Adrian, it wasn't a Mongoose, but
Yeah.
Threads is only good against one card in Neil's deck.
Right.
It's very poor against Delver's Secret Sword, Insectile Operation, and can't even target a Mongoose. So it's a very high variant sideboard card, and we just saw it backfire on Adrian badly that game.
I know one of the most awkward situations in a game of Magic is, when you come in with your plan, and your plan comes together, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
The way it did in that game, that can be a really strange feeling because A, maybe you were just on the wrong plan. That's the most actual common instance. Or B, maybe you were just playing that one in however many game where it's just not going to pan out correctly. It's very difficult to identify one from the other.
Yeah. That's a situation where Adrian could look at this game and go, man, my plan just did not work at all. You can try something else, but at the same time, the plan could work again this game. So it's tough to say which way it's going to go. If he does change anything, as both players did shuffle very quickly, so it doesn't look like either player re-sideboarded. I think they're probably happy, which means that those Threads are probably still in Adrian's deck right now.
I would assume. One of the nice things about Threads is that actually because Neil is playing a Rugless with Spell Snare, which is not ubiquitously played, that makes the Price of Progress plan significantly more vulnerable. So Threads actually gives him a great alternate win condition, which otherwise, it's a lot more difficult. As much fun as it is to cast Lava Spikes, it doesn't always work out when you don't have Big Papa Price of Progress on your side.
All right, so Delver Secret's going to start the show here for Adrian.
Turn 1 Island Delver is a great start for Adrian. It puts Neil on the back foot. If he doesn't have a Bolt, he'll be taking some damage. It looks like he's going to ponder.
He has a Pyroblast in his
Yeah,
hand
I
as
saw
well,
that he has
so.
a Pyroblast, so it appears Neil is underestimating the incidental damage that can pile up, which is amusing considering the Rug Delver is king of capitalizing on the incidental damage.
Yeah, you can't afford to take a free 3 from a Delver Secret. And then, if it does flip this turn, I think, if Neil were to Pyroblast that, Adrian would be willing to fight over said Pyroblast.
Right. Adrian is not, a simple man's red deck. He's got some interaction of his own here.
Makes
He can fight about it.
Makes a potential Spell Pierce look very, very good.
Yeah.
All right, so Ponder Shuffle, draw a Mystery Cod. It's a Stifle. That's a turn back. Adrian checking for
Stifle
blackjack.
that Delver turn? No.
No flip. Dodges a bullet. Does Milligan. So in for 1 comes Sullivan, putting Milligan down to 19.
Looks like Adrian has a Grim Lavamancer.
Yep.
He's going to go ahead and deploy that guy. It's a dangerous spot to do against Rug Delver.
There's only one.
There's Fork Bolt.
There's only one.
I know there's only one, but Adrian has seen it
Yeah.
both times, so he has no idea. There are definitely lists that have run as many as 3 in the past. But once you see Spell Snare, you got to just wonder what's he cutting?
Yeah.
You can't just have it all.
Yeah. There's a Wasteland here for Neil.
This is going to be a pretty tempting spot in which to Wasteland, considering Grim Lavamancer requires red to activate. If you can maybe strand Adrian off of it, it's just Amon's Goblin Raiders. Not so scary. Not so scary.
Reaching for that Pyroblast.
He wants to, I can tell. He's going for it. Adrian immediately picks up his hand. Kind of implies he might have a response. No? All right.
All right, down goes Delver. And Wasteland's going to take down the Volcanic.
And you see in this game, Neil has really assumed that control position. He's just trying to keep Adrian off his back, remove the threats as they come. And he does have a sweet, sweet Nimble Mongoose in his hand as well. The lightning bolt that keeps on giving.
So Adrian is going to play a Bloodstained Iron, come across here with the Grim Lavamancer. Sacrifice this. Probably can search for a basic mountain. There's potential for a Volcanic on here as well if he does want to bait another Wasteland out of a Neil.
I'm probably getting a mountain if I'm Adrian. Wow.
Yes,
Goes for
he is.
Volcanic. I
Maybe
mean,
he's baiting.
maybe he is. I don't know. One of the concerns in the matchup is, Price of Progress is, it's not actually just deal, 80 damage to the opponent. You can have every now and then get into a situation where you will find yourself drawing as a result of having price of progress, which is no good. I assume Adrian knows what he's doing here. Searches up Volcanic Island.
Searches up as well on his turn so he doesn't get stifled.
Right.
There's a Wasteland. And here is a Ponder.
Yep.
Adrian really getting this one some thought. Oh, it's a tough question here with the Red Delver deck. Do you counter these manipulation spells or do you save things for the real threats? It's tough to sit there and counter Ponders and Brainstorms all day.
It's usually very subjective depending on the game. If I'm Adrian though, I'm probably pretty interested in countering this Ponder because my opponent has shown a lack of green. And as we've already discussed, the two best cards in the matchup, they're both green.
Yep.
We, however, do know that Neil will not be playing a green land this turn, given that he's already made his land drop. So perhaps that weighs on Adrian's decision. He knows he's not going to have to face a Nimble Mongoose or a Tarmogoyf for at least another turn.
Yeah. So Ponder is going to require a shuffle here from Neil. Did not look happy with the 3 cards. So a mystery card is coming. We'll see what it's going to be.
And behind the door, Stifle. Oh, that's no good.
And Wasteland again.
Adrian floating one again.
Alright, so untapping a draw.
Yeah, Neil has, looks like a Spell Snare, 2 Stifles, a Brainstorm, a Nimble Mongoose, and a Daze in his hand. Most of those spells are pretty ineffective in this situation, especially because he is mana strapped.
Yep.
Cards like Stifle, not so good when you're behind.
In comes Adrian with the Grim Lavamancer yet again. And putting it on a 17. Pass his turn back. Alien did draw a Price of Progress for his turn.
Oh, well, you can go ahead and just fling that right to Neil's face. Take 2.
Yep.
You rapscallion.
Well, it's going to be 4 now. That's Misty Rainforest off the top there for Neil. He's going to allow him to search for a blue source, maybe?
My guess, Tropical Island.
And that's why we bring you in the booth, Glenn.
Yep, I don't want to talk out of school, but
Yep.
God, I'm so good.
You really are.
It'll be interesting to see what he does here. I mean, I would probably just be dropping Nimble Mongoose. That's about it, really. It's worth noting he did not Brainstorm before cracking that fetch, a card he does have in his hand. So, he appears satisfied with what's going on. I would be pretty tempted to throw away those Stifles, though.
Yeah, I think they're getting worse and worse as the game goes along. You can definitely tell that Adrian's playing around them. As Nimble Mongoose is placed on the stack here for Milligan.
I think that Neil has demonstrated a very strong preference for brainstorming at instant speed as opposed to the main phaser.
Mm-hmm. Nimble Mongoose does resolve for Adrian, and the problem is back, and better than ever.
Yep. This time Adrian has a little bit of a damage lead as opposed to being at, like 10 life when he played his first threat.
Yep.
So he's got some hope. Grim Lavamancer has plenty of food.
Wasteland the draw here.
Not very useful. Oh. He's tapping his green source of Brainstorm here, hoping to hit a removal spell for Grim Lavamancer. Peels those cards off camera, so...
Yeah, it's got to be a secret,
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Fetch land, Nimble Mongoose, Force of Will. One of those is incredible. The other one is useful. The other one is a Force of Will.
That's true.
I smell a fetch for Tropical Island and a second Nimble Mongoose joining the party, bringing us to Threshold.
It's the second time you smelled that in the past 2 turns. Your nose. You claim that you're a little under the weather. I don't buy it.
It looks like that Brainstorm put us to Threshold, actually. Glare making it a little difficult to see, but Adrian's going to fall to 16.
So there is a Scalding Tarn going to get sacrificed. Looks like we're probably going to see another green source and another Mongoose, making it Mongeese that are on the table.
You'll note it only took a quick couple of Nimble Mongooses to make this game look really good for Neil, when Adrian was clearly in the lead, had lands, had spells. What more can a man want?
To dodge the Mongooses, that's what he'd like to do. And he's not able, as there's a second one coming onto the table here. And, it's funny that Nimble Mongoose is, a threat that was big in this deck, kind of went away a little bit, and then people moved back towards it.
Yep.
I think people moved away from it when Snapcaster Range came out, wanted to try the big new flashy guy. But Nimble Mongoose does its job, and it does it well. It's very efficient 1-mana 3/3, as Adrian is going to Force of Will that, removing the Spell Pierce, and this is definitely something worth fighting over.
Yeah, worth forcing. I'm curious if he has another Spell Pierce, because otherwise he might find himself in a fight. Neil lets it happen. I would have been pretty inclined to fight about it if I were Neil.
Yeah, I think you have to understand what your most important cards are in the matchup, and Mongoose is, I think, the top star, like even better than Tarmogoyf.
Neil is the Price of Progress is Adrian's best card, and Nimble Mongoose is Neil's, with Tarmogoyf on the same echelon. But as we know, Adrian's sideboard strategy kind of knocks Tarmogoyf down a couple pegs. Yeah. So Neil doesn't actually know it, but Nimble Mongoose was the most important play he could make. Adrian got a zap in at the end step there. He's putting the clock on now. He's got something kind of close to Nimble Mongoose going on with Grim Lavamancer, but it costs him a mana, and he has to keep that graveyard full.
So what's it going to be for Mr. Sullivan here, as he is really contemplating his turn and knows that the race is on against Nimble Mongoose. He just experienced this last game. He knows that he needs to. He's on a 5-turn clock right now, and he needs to be able to try to get this game over with and get some points of damage in.
Yeah. His clock is competitive with Neil's. He has more burn. He knows it. So he's going to go ahead and chip with Grim Lavamancer, put Neil down to 12. And Price of Progress, can chop that right in half.
So on the upkeep.
He's upkeeping that. He doesn't want to let Neil have a draw step. He knew he couldn't beat a Spell Snare anyway. So he's just going to go for it when he can. Doesn't work, though.
Spell Snare does take care of that Price of Progress. As Neil is going to draw a card, bash in for 3. It's going to be 12 even here between Sullivan and Milligan. And he does just pass the turn back. So Adrian going to draw a card very quickly.
Daze. That's a stinger to draw. If he had that in his hand last turn, he could have just priced during his own turn. He would have been able to daze the Spell Snare, and then he would have been able to play the land he picked up with Daze.
Yep.
It would have been wonderful.
Would have been a fantastic turn for him.
He's going to have to see if he can piece it together now.
In for 1.
Yep. Send. This means he's probably planning to cast a red spell this turn. That's my guess. Looks like he has another price, if I'm not mistaken. He's trying it again. Upkeep. Getcha.
This time with Daze back up, but his Daze back up good. And it doesn't feel like it now. What is this?
He's casting Daze. Brutal. Yeah, just brutal for Adrian there. Yeah. 2 prices countered. Nimble Mongoose tolling the bell.
Adrian quickly untaps here. You see a bolt in his hand.
I think I see 2 bolts of Grim Lavamancer and a Daze.
Yeah.
I think that's the extent of his options, which, with him stranded on just the one mountain, that's pretty tough. He is Arcane Labbed of his own devise.
Yeah, I think I saw the same thing too. Those two bolts that Grim Lavamancer make it very tough. He has to attack your Grim Lavamancer where it's pretty evident he doesn't want to do that.
Right.
So you see Adrian considering his options here. Can I keep attacking? Is it time to start jumping? Can these bolts bring me home? What do I need to top deck to get myself out of this situation? It is going to be tough moving forward. That Daze, as you said, the timing on that was unspectacular at best.
Yeah. The worst part about those kind of those draw steps are not that, it's just magic. You drew a different card every turn or whatever. Just the way you feel, because you're thinking, man, what if I'd waited a turn? What if I did this? What if I'd done that?
Then you watch your own spell get dazed.
Yeah.
That's a punch in the face if we've ever seen one. Because now Lavamancer is going to hang back on defense.
My guess is he's going to chump and shock, trying to just get as much value as he can out of his burn spells.
Yep.
Hope to draw a second red source this turn.
It's a classic case of if you're not attacking, you're probably blocking, but we're just going to see an activation here instead.
Okay.
He's not going to start blocking yet.
He can make the same iteration on the next turn. He has access to it.
Lightning Bolt you. Okay.
Red alert.
Uh-oh has been announced.
His draw step was a second lightning bolt. Runner, lightning bolts for Neil.
Yep.
That'll do it. Yep.
Not the first time we've seen that with Red Delver. So Neil Milligan is going to win this match 2-1 over Adrian Sullivan playing Blue-Red Delver. A tough matchup for Blue-Red Delver overall.
It is. It's one of the bad ones. And we saw there the power of the top deck lightning bolt, which I think is really one of the underestimated capacities of Red Delver.
Yeah.
It makes use of that card. good use.
It's a deck that, as you said, wants to squeak out every point of damage they can, wants to let those fetch land points add up as well from the opponent. All of that stuff does count in the end, taking your opponent from 20 to 0. So those top deck lightning bolts, something that you do need to get used to playing around, as 3 or 6 is not a safe life total against this deck.